Welcome, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. My name is Jeff Schleiper, and I live in Olympia, Washington, which is a long, long, far away from Kropivnicki. And we're going to talk about that today during the presentation. But I can tell you that over the last 18 years, I have visited Kropivnicki, formerly Kirovograd, formerly Elizabethgrad, formerly all the other names. I have visited 28 times. I have made 28 trips to Ukraine, which means that I have flown to Ukraine and then flown home to Ukraine, back to America. So I've done this trip many, many times. And I thought it might be interesting to actually show pictures and talk about what it's like to go through that whole experience, to travel from Kropivnicki into Kiev, to go through the process at the Boryspil airport, and to eventually arrive in the United States. So, but before I begin, I would love to find out if anyone else on the call this morning, or this evening, or I should say, if there's anyone else who has done this trip to the United States. Has anyone else come here to the United States? I'm assuming no, because I'm hearing a lot of silence. I know Christy has. But I think everyone else, I guess no one else has. Okay, so this will be new for almost everybody, except for Christy. But we're going to assume that this is new for her. And so the trip that I'm going to show you is the trip from Kropivnicki all the way to Seattle, Washington. And Seattle, Washington is a long trip because you have to go all the way to the United States, but then you also have to cross all the way across the United States to the West Coast. So it's a long journey, and you're gonna find out more about that as we go through the presentation. So let's begin. So of course, the first step for any trip to the United States is you have to go to Kiev, and you've got to get your US visa. And this is where you get it. And Christy, I know you've done this. Has anyone else tried to apply for a visa yet? Anyone gone this way?
Yes, I've
excellent. Yeah.
But I was refused 2 times.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Yes, but my father received for 10 years.
Really?
Yes, and my father, yes, 10 years. You know, it says 3 years ago we received, yes, this visa for 10 years, yes.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, from the first time, you know, without any problem.
Yeah, wow.
But some people told us that my father is lucky.
Yeah, he is.
To receive.
He is. It's very hard to get. It's becoming more and more difficult, you know, to get a visa these days. I hope that changes in the future. And I hope that everyone on the call has a chance to eventually apply for a visa and come. But for those who are fortunate to get one, this is where you got to go. This is where you have to go to get it, in Kiev. And you'll wait in a room that's sort of like this one. You'll sit on little chairs and wait for your number to be called. And then you'll walk up to a little window, and the person behind the window will ask you some questions about why you're going and who lives with you here in Ukraine and all these other questions. And then maybe you get lucky and maybe you get the visa. And if you do, then you give them your passport. You know, you take your Ukrainian passport with you and you say, okay, here it is, and you give it to the nice person. And then they keep it. And then they have a group of people that put the actual piece of paper, the visa, and they attach it to your passport. So that way you can't lose it. And like the picture you saw here, so let's say Taras Shevchenko, he's going to go to America if he was still alive. and so he,
Что-то я понимаю, шуточки за 300 пора остановить.
yeah. I'm not sure that's a great picture, but anyway, yeah. So there he is. and this is what it would look like when it was all ready to go.
Nice.
And then, of course, the first thing you would do is you would immediately go back to Kropivnicky and tell everyone at the library that you got your visa. we would say, hey, I got my visa. And everyone would say, oh, that's great. And you'd have a party and, all that. So here you are in the beautiful city of Kropivnicky, and you're getting ready for your trip. You've got your tickets, you've made your connections for the United States. You know where you're going to go, you know who you're going to stay with. You've got it all ready. You are ready. So you say, "Do побачення, Kropivnicky," and here we go to America. So maybe you get on the Autolux bus, maybe you take one of those mini buses or the Marshutka, all those different ones. You eventually get yourself to Boryspil Airport. And that could take 4 hours, it could take 5 or 6, or depending on how you do it, it can take a while. But now we're beginning the trip. So here you are, and you're coming into the new terminal at Boryspil, and it's pretty nice. They did a nice road that goes to the airport from Kiev. Nice big terminal, very modern. It's very, very pleasant. So you get out of your bus or your car, you walk into the entrance where it says departures. And the first thing you do, the very first thing you do is you put your bag or your sumka or whatever you're bringing, and you put it through the detector to be sure that you're not bringing bad things with you, any metal or anything like that. They check that. This guy looks like he's pretty happy. He's managed to get through.
But now we don't have it.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't have it? Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay.
now, yes. Perhaps, I was in this airport 2-3 weeks ago, so we didn't have.
Oh,
yes,
good. Excellent. That's good, because it's been a year for me, so I'm glad they don't have that. So then you go, of course, and Anastasia, tell me if this has changed. But then you eventually go to one of these lines where you check in for your flight. You bring your information for your flight, and you say, "Oh, I'm flying to the United States, and I'm on this airline." And these big display boards they look like this still, right, Anastasia? They're still these big.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, yes.
Yeah. You'll see these big displays, and as you look down through it, you say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to Amsterdam, or I'm going to Paris, or I'm going to Istanbul, or I'm going to Zurich." One of these flights. And the way it's going to work is that you can't fly directly to the United States from Kiev. You have to take 2 flights, or maybe 3, but usually it's at least 2 flights. And you're going to connect somewhere. Maybe it's Istanbul, maybe it's Amsterdam, maybe it's Paris, maybe it's somewhere in Germany, maybe Frankfurt. Who knows where it's going to be? But depending on the airline, you're going to connect somewhere. But you're going to go through Europe eventually, most likely. And then, so this board will tell you where to go. Oh, yeah, I need to go check in, give them my documents, all of that. This is when the flight departs. This is if it's delayed or if any problems with the flight. This will tell you all that information. So you get through that, and then you get to wait for your flight. You have to sit in these little chairs, check your messages on your phone, maybe get something to eat, maybe a little bit of tea or coffee or something like that. And then eventually you'll hear them, you're at the right gate number, the right place for your flight, and they will call and they say, it's time to get on the airplane. And they will start checking passports. They will check your ticket again. It will tell you to have a nice flight, you know, enjoy. And then you'll walk on and you'll get on usually a smaller plane. I mean, it's a big airplane, but it's not the huge airplanes. These ones in Europe tend to be a little smaller because they're not going quite as far. So you'll get on a plane that looks sort of like this. Lots of happy passengers going somewhere. You'll take your seat. I kind of like the window seat personally, but you know, you can arrange your seat in advance usually, and you pick your seat. Anastasia, do you have a favorite seat? Do you have a seat that you like the best?
Yes, I like sit near a window. Window.
Yeah,
but sometimes it can be inconvenient, you know.
Yeah.
To go to toilet, so yes, because sometimes people can sleep, yes, and
you have to wake them up, and Anyway, so you get yourself on the plane, and for this particular trip, the one I'm going to show you is the one that I normally do, and it is a trip from Borisspil to Amsterdam. And the airport, the Amsterdam airport is beautiful. It's a great big airport. It's really nice. Have you connected through Amsterdam before, Christy?
Yes, it's very big airport.
Yeah, Christy's right. It's very big.
I lost there.
Yeah, me too. But, you know, it's actually it's big, but it's very nice. You know, people are usually pretty helpful. It's very clean. It's lots of signs everywhere, you know, and of course, everyone on the call here today, their English is perfect, right? So no problems. They'll be able to read all of the signs. So yeah, so anyway, so you take off, maybe you're on KLM, maybe you're on Ukrainian International, maybe you're on another airline that's going to Amsterdam, but you take off from Borisspil, and you say Paka Paka Kiev, and then you arrive in Schiphol Airport in Amsterdam. And like Christy said, it's a big place. You can see from this aerial picture, this is the airport. Yes, this is a big place. So they've got so many runways. They've got a runway here, one right here, one here, one here, one here, and one here. I think it's six runways for airplanes, and many different parts of this enormous airplane terminal, you know, the place where the airplanes park. You can see it's a really big place. But I've been there many times over the years, and it's a good place to connect through. So here you are. You've arrived in Schiphol, and you probably remember this, Christy, and maybe Anastasia, you've seen this too in airports. They're such a big place. These are big places. They have these moving walkways. They're like the escalator that goes up, but it stays flat to help people cover these great distances. So you just have to be careful, you know, the first time. You don't want to fall, you know, or trip over something, or, you know, forget your bag or do some horrible thing. So you'll follow these moving walkways for quite a distance. You know, it can be a kilometer or even 2 kilometers inside the airport. That's how big these places are. So yeah, so you do this for a while, and then you eventually get to your big airplane. So the big airplanes, those what they call the wide body airplanes, the great big ones, those are the ones that are usually doing these international flights, right? And Anastasia, did you have a big plane when you went to Egypt?
Yes, yes, it was. It's 8 seats in one
Yeah,
row.
yeah,
I don't know
exactly.
if the two
Just
big-
like this, yeah.
Yes, here we have, years, I think.
Yeah,
years.
this is 8 also. So 2, 4, and 2, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so you see these big planes. So you'll go through the same process that you went through at Boryspil, but this time, oh wow, there's a lot more people getting on your airplane. Instead of 120 or 130 people, now it's 250 or maybe even 300 people getting on these great big planes. So yeah, so you get on the plane, you go to your seat, and your seat boarding pass, they call it, a boarding pass that will tell you where to go. So you find your row number and your seat, and you eventually get yourself settled. And on these long flights, at least the ones that I like to take, every seat has a little screen, a little video screen. It's great. It's wonderful. And at least on the airline that I fly, this one is Delta Airline. It's a big United States airline. And they have daily flights from Amsterdam to the United States. They've got a really cool setup on these screens. You can pick the language you want. So English, Spanish, Portuguese, French, Italian, Dutch, German, Dutch, and then look, Russian. Yeah. And then some other ones I can't pronounce, and so on and so forth. But you got a lot of choices, so you can pick the language, and they have lots of movies, lots of videos to watch. They usually have at least 100 movies to choose from, and then they also have a really cool thing that shows you where your flight is. You know, where are you over the ocean? It shows you in real time, and it also tells you how much time to go. Oh, this is in miles. You know, in the United States, we use miles instead of kilometers, but it'll tell you how many miles. It'll tell you what time you're going to arrive, how much time you've been flying, tells you about the airplane that you're on, all this cool stuff. So it's kind of nice to be able to have this information right there in the seat. And of course, then you've got nice people that go up and down the aisles with these little carts. And if you want something to drink,
I'm sorry, can I show something?
Yeah, sure.
I found a picture. I was using LOT Airlines. It's Polish Airlines.
Yes.
And I want to show you the screens on there. Okay, can you see that?
Oh, can you see? Yeah.
And then they have also the remote control.
Oh, cool. Isn't that great?
And it's so convenient. Yeah, it's like this, the screens.
Yeah.
It's so very nice. Yeah.
Yeah. It's really nice on those long trips to have something to, watch and something to distract.
And the little presents and earrings.
Yeah, they give you a little present. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So yeah, they'll come up and down the aisle and ask you if you want something to drink. And of course, on the American Airlines, they'll ask if you want ice, ice in your drink. Americans, we like that stuff. I know Ukrainians not so much, but yeah, we like that. So, and you can say, no, thank you. No ice, please. And they'll just give you something to drink. And they'll have juices and soda and things like that. And if you want alcoholic drinks, of course, no one on this call would ever want something like that. But just in case, you can have that also. And then on these long flights, you're going to get a meal, and it's free. I mean, you don't have to buy it; it's free. And probably 2 meals if you're going to the East Coast. If you're going to the West Coast, like Seattle, in this case, you're going to get 3 meals because you're on this plane for more than 10 hours. It's a long flight. It's actually almost 11 hours from Amsterdam to Seattle. So on that flight, they're going to serve you 2 or 3 meals. So yeah, it's a long trip. But eventually, after many hours, you look out your window, and this is what you'll see. You'll know you're getting close to Seattle when you see Mount Rainier, this amazing old volcano that is next to the city. And it's 4,300 meters high. It's a big mountain, covered in snow, covered in glaciers. And you'll say, wow, I'm arriving in Seattle, finally, after this long trip. And then you look out your window, you know, and you look down and you say, ah, it's the city of Seattle. It's Seattle. I'm finally here. And this is called the Puget Sound. It's water. That's right. It's part of the Pacific Ocean, but it's a big harbor. And this is the harbor of the city, the downtown area, the sports stadium. You'll say, aha, we're almost there. Just a few more minutes. And then you get really close, and there's the Seattle airport. You say, yes, yes, almost there. And it's also a pretty big airport. It's not as big as Amsterdam, but it's pretty big. This is the airport here. It covers quite an area. And then you land and you look out and you see that same mountain. And this time you're seeing it from the ground, looking right at it, right across the airport at Mount Rainier. So yeah, welcome to Seattle. You finally made it. And then of course, then the real fun begins. Then you have to go through passport control and customs control. And you know, this is a big airport, lots of flights coming in from all over the world. So you get to wait in line for a long time. And eventually you'll get up to the officer who will review your passport and your visa. They'll ask you questions. I know in Christy's case, they asked you lots and lots and lots of questions.
2 hours. I was sitting in a separate room with police officer.
Yeah. Sometimes you have nothing. They just say, okay. And sometimes they ask questions and oh my goodness, it's horrible.
But why does it happen? Christy, why does it happen?
Because they thought that I came to work in United States without paying no taxes.
Right.
Well, and they didn't believe me that I came really to my aunt. So the story that I told them, it was not real for them. So they asked why? So I was crying. I thought that I will come back home.
Yeah.
So it was terrible, really terrible for me. 2 hours before, and my first flight, it was direct by Ukrainian Airlines, 13 hours from Borisov to New York.
Right.
And I was like, oh, crazy, really crazy. But then he said, okay, I will call to your aunt now, make sure that she's waiting for you. And he called to my aunt. I gave him the number. She was shocked as well. She was waiting for me for 2 hours and no Christy at all.
Yeah.
Oh, and then he said, okay, go.
Yeah. Well, fortunately, and I'm so sorry that happened, but fortunately that is not normal. You know, the normal is they ask you a few questions. They might ask you some more after that, but then eventually you are through. But yeah, 2 hours is unusual, but unfortunately it does happen occasionally.
I'm lucky, yeah, I know.
Yeah. So hopefully that'll never happen to you again, Christy, and I hope it doesn't happen to anyone else who comes. And of course, I had that experience when I came into Ukraine for the first time, and that was in 2003. 2003. Yeah. And, you know, a lot has happened in those 18 years. But I remember the very first time I arrived at the small airport, Terminal B in Borisov. Oh boy, everyone was asking me questions. You know, there were very few Americans coming in at that time. So here is this guy from Seattle, and why are you coming to Kiev? Why are you here? You know, all these questions. So yeah, I got that experience coming into Ukraine. a few times. Anyway, eventually you get through this this passport ordeal, and then you go get your bag. You know, your bag has been waiting for you. It's come off the plane. You go to the baggage claim area, and these are big places, you know, because the airport's big. So you find the place where your bag is coming in. You grab your bag, hopefully, and then you go through customs. So it's sort of like passport control, but this is for your possessions, your things in bags. And sometimes they check it and sometimes they don't. It's just luck. You know, it depends on the day. So sometimes they'll go through your bag and make sure you're not bringing things that you're not allowed to bring. Yeah, or yeah, any kind of meats or cheeses or anything like that. Or maybe they'll just say, no problem, have a nice day, enjoy your time in the US. So they'll give you your little card back, and then you're in the US. Once you get past this, done. You made it. You've arrived. And at Seattle Airport, it's a pretty big airport. They actually have 3 terminals, 3 buildings. And the international building connects by train, underground train, sort of like small metro. It's free, but you get on this small metro train that takes you to the main terminal, the big terminal. So you'll get on this little metro train, and it kind of runs along. Then eventually you come into the main terminal. You come up the stairs or the escalators, and you say, I'm in Seattle. Finally, you've arrived. And this is what the Seattle airport map looks like. The main terminal here, you can see all these. This is all the main terminal. Then you have these smaller terminals here and over here, and they're connected by these underground trains, these underground metros that run here. You have 3 of them, and so all together. And so you eventually arrive. You figure out where you are. You say, okay, now where am I? You know, what do I do? And maybe you're going into a hotel in the center of Seattle. You know, that's common for most people who arrive. And then you would get on one of these above ground trains. And this is called the Sound Transit train. And these stops right at the airport. It's great. It's right at the airport. So you walk out the door, you get on this little train, and you take that right into the center of the city. But before we do that, I want to go through all the time this takes and what time zones, and because you have all this time change. So let's go through that. So you've got, the first thing is you have the bus or a marshutka or something to Boryspil, 5 hours, approximate. Check-in time at Boryspil, 2.5 hours. Flight to Amsterdam, 4 hours. Check-in time at Schiphol Airport, 2.5 hours. Flight to Seattle, 11 hours. Passport and customs in Seattle, 2 hours, we hope. We hope it's not more than that. And then travel to the hotel in Seattle, approximately an hour, depending upon where you're going. So the total time, if you add all this up, it's 28 hours. 28 hours.
At least.
So, yeah, at least. That's right. So the time zone difference, right? You have time zones all around the world. The time zone difference from Seattle to Ukraine is 10 hours. So, you know, it's early here this morning. It's, 7 o'clock in the morning or 7:15 in the morning here. So yeah, 7 o'clock in the morning. And it's 5 p.m. in Kropivnicki, yes? So yeah, so 10 hours difference. So if you look, at the schedule, you depart Kropivnicki, let's say at 10 p.m. at night on a Tuesday. I'm just going to use Tuesday as an example. So you depart Kropivnicki at 10 p.m. on a Tuesday. You arrive at Boryspil at 3 a.m. on Wednesday. You depart Boryspil at 5:30 a.m. and arrive at Schiphol at 8:30. It's 4 hours, but Amsterdam is 1 hour earlier. There are 9 hours difference. So you arrive, you sort of lose an hour in this travel. So, or you gain an hour depending on how you look at it. Then you depart Schiphol at 11 a.m. You arrive at SeaTac Airport in Seattle at 1 p.m. because it's 9 hours earlier than Amsterdam. You clear passport. You arrive at the hotel at 4 p.m. on Wednesday, which is 2 a.m. Thursday, Ukraine time. Any questions? Yeah, it's complicated. You know, trying to keep track of all of the flight and what time it is and where you are. And after a while, you just have no idea. You don't know what day it is. You don't know what time it is. You just are completely lost. So this, unfortunately, is the reality of long distance air travel. Anyway, so you eventually arrive and you look out the window and this is what you see. You see the city of Seattle with the mountain, with these beautiful buildings, with this great Space Needle. And this is welcome to Seattle. You made it, finally, after all of these hours. So that's it. Are there any questions about this? I hope there are. I hope someone has a question.
I would like to ask about a price of ticket to from Amsterdam to Seattle.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So from Kiev, you know, if you're going to connect, you buy the entire flight, you know, the two connecting flights. You buy it all on one ticket, and depending upon lots of things, you know, the time of the year, how busy the airports are, you know, all of these things, right? The prices change quite a bit, but normally what we call the round trip, you know, flying to the United States and then flying back, getting both tickets at the same time, it's somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 round trip. So approximately $500 to $750 each direction. So it's a lot of money. You know, it's not cheap. Yeah, it's a lot of money.
Any other questions?
Any other questions?
What is the Okay, yeah.
I have a question. How much is the ticket cost from airport in Seattle to the city center?
Oh yeah, that little that train that you take. Yeah. Oh, not very expensive. It's usually about $2. You know, $2 US.
So it's a bus ticket or train ticket.
Oh yeah, it's just the that little train that you saw. I think it's back here. Yeah, this you take this little train. You know, I think it's about $2, $2 US. Yeah. So what's that? 55 approximately, something like that.
So what about buses? Is it the same price?
Yeah, the same. You can take a bus too, approximately the same price. The train is better; it's faster. You know, the bus is much slower. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a big city. You know, Seattle's a big place. It's about the size of Kiev. It's about 3.5 million people. And it's a cool city. Lots to see.
Lots to see in the United States.
Oh boy, you're not
Every
kidding.
state, you know.
That's right.
Do you know what is the typical questions at the embassy? For example, in Ukrainian one, the questions that ask police officers in the United States when you come.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. That is an excellent question. So what they want to know, what the United States Embassy wants to know is they want to know if you're going to come back to Ukraine. That's really what they want to know. Yeah.
Yes, they are afraid. Yes.
Absolutely. This is the problem. You know, if you look at the history over not just Ukraine, but almost every country, not every country, but almost every country. The problem is people say, oh, yes, I promise I am going to come to America. It's going to be great. I'll have a wonderful visit. And then I'm going to go home. But you know what? They don't.
even if you have the ticket, the way back ticket.
Yeah, they say, no, thanks. And they stay. And there's a special term, special words that they use for this. It's called non-return or not returning, basically. So every country has their own percentage, their own statistic that the United States keeps track of. They measure this. And they say, oh, well, you're from Ukraine. Oh, well, they look at their statistics and they see, wow, the rate of non-return is very high. A lot of Ukrainians say, oh, yes, I promise I'm going back to Ukraine. And then they get to America and they say, this is pretty great. This is pretty nice. I think I'll stay. So that's what they're trying to find out. So the question was, what questions do they ask? What do they want to know? And the answer is they want to determine what things are keeping you to return to Ukraine. What things will make you want to return? So for example, what family do you have in Ukraine? Where is your mother? Where is your father? How many sisters and brothers? Where are your aunts and uncles and cousins? And do you have a job? What kind of job? Yeah. How much money do you make? What kind of education? All these questions, right? And they might ask, have you ever been to the United States before? Or have you visited other countries? Maybe you've gone to Germany. Maybe you've gone, where have you visited? So they ask you all these questions. So I will tell you, I'll give you some advice on this one. Always, always, always tell the truth. Always, because they know most of those answers already.
But how? Do they have database?
Yes. They have those computer screens they're looking at. They know everything about you. They don't need to ask you these questions. They already know the answers. They're asking to see if you will tell the truth. That's what they're asking. And if you say, something not quite the truth, no, I don't have a brother. No, I have no brothers. No brothers. And they look at their screen and they say, oh, yeah, you've got a brother living in Lviv. They'll say, oh, well, what about your brother in Lviv? And you'll say, oh, yeah, I forgot about him. Yeah, yeah, thanks for reminding me.
And also, because, before going to the embassy of the United States to Kyiv, you also fill in a special form. I don't remember how is it called.
Yeah.
Pay some money to the embassy, yes? So all the details of why are you going to the United States, you are filling in this form. And then we check this information, is it true or not? So they know it.
Yeah. So, and I can tell you, everyone on the call, so our daughter, Katie, she works for the United States State Department. So she works, or had for many years worked in embassies around the world, doing this job, talking to people from other countries, asking them those questions. So Katie Katie has told me about this. So I know what they're doing, and they know the answers to all these questions they're going to ask you. So that's why they want to find out if you're going to be truthful and if you're really going to return. But sometimes, even if you tell the truth and you do everything right, sometimes it's just a numbers game. In other words, only so many people each day are going to be given a visa. And so, Anastasia, I think in your case, the numbers were not for you. You know, it was not your good time. Also, the fact that you have family, here in the States, but you might have friends elsewhere. Who knows what the reasons are? But getting a visa has become more a matter of luck rather than how you answer the questions. It's unfortunate. Yeah, it's unfortunate.
We were with my father, and they asked almost the same questions.
Yeah.
Where do you study? And for my father, where do you work? Do you have family? And that's also, Victor, congratulations, you received visa, and thank you, Anastasia, next time. But yes, it's the reason you told us. It's about that my family, my father has business in Ukraine, a big family, and such. But about me, I was 20, So.
Yeah. So they could see that he would want to return to Ukraine because he has this business. Where you were younger, you don't have as many connections. They might say, I don't know.
Yes, at this time when I applied for visa to the USA, I was living in Poland.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, well, yeah, so these are, it's always a matter of luck, unfortunately. Right now, it's a lot about luck. But I certainly hope that will change in the future, and it will be possible for more Ukrainians to come and visit here in the United States. So so that's it. That's our presentation. So next week, at Christy's request, Christy asked that I do this presentation next week. We're going to talk about New York City again. Now, we talked about New York a few weeks ago, but this time we're going to talk about museums. And specifically, we're going to talk about this pretty amazing museum that's in New York City. It's called the New York City Museum of Natural History. And Christy has been there. Yes, Christy?
Yes, twice.
Twice. Wow, you really liked it. Yeah.
And I didn't see everything for the two times.
It's huge.
It's just it's so huge.
Yeah, there's no way you can see it in a day or even two.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna do my best to give people a feeling for what you would see there, and then of course, Christy, assuming you're with us next week, you can talk about your experience there.
Maybe I will find some pictures.
Yeah. And I'll try my best to put a lot of pictures up, and we'll talk about that. And then I'll also talk about a few other interesting museums in New York City. As you might imagine, it's a big city, and they've got a lot of museums, and there are some really special museums there. But this is one of my favorites. The Natural History Museum is pretty special. Yeah. So that'll be for next Thursday, a week from today. Yes.
Yes. Next Thursday.
Super. And I will be talking to you. I'm taking a trip, driving down to the south part of the United States this weekend. And next week, I will be talking to you once again from Tucson, Arizona, which is right